Today's video is going to be about how to divide a whole number by a decimal. And I will say, out of all the division that we do, this to me is the trickiest one. But we're going to break it down today, and I'm going to show you two different problems or two different examples on how to solve these. The first one we're going to do with an area model, just like we've done with multiplying decimals and dividing decimals by whole numbers. The word problem that we're starting with says Sabrina makes 2 pounds of barbecue peanuts. How many bags will she need if she plans to package 2,500 pounds of peanuts into each bag? The first thing that I need to do is figure out what's being shared and who or where it's going to. So in this problem, when I look, I notice that I have my 2 pounds of barbecue peanuts. And that is going to be what is being shared. I'm sharing the 2 pounds of peanuts. Now, they are being divided into groups of 2,500 pounds to fit into each bag. So the problem that I'm going to be solving here today is 2 divided by 2,500. When I look at these models that I have here, I have 2 models. This is one model, this is 2 models. I need to go through and make groups of 2,500 in order to solve. So in order to highlight 2,500, we know that each of these sticks represent 1/10, and one of these squares right here represent 100. So as we go to do these, I'm going to be highlighting 2 sticks to represent 2/10. And then I'm going to be highlighting 500s to represent the 500s as part of the 2,500s. When I do this, I'm going to be alternating colors just so you guys can see it a little bit better, and it makes it visually easier for you. But you will see that I just continue to highlight groups of 2,500s. And some of you guys may have already done this in your classes, but you might have just done it circling them. You might have done it shading them in. It just really depends. If you look at this one here, you can see where I have one group here in blue. I have the second group in green, the third group in blue, and the fourth group in green. So you can kind of assume how many groups I'm going to be able to get over here as well. But I'm going to go ahead and continue to highlight here. All right, so I've gotten those highlighted. I'm going to go through and do the same thing. This is the 5th group, the 6th group, the 7th group, and the 8th group. So here, Sabrina will be able to use how many bags? Similar to how we talked about, does your answer make sense? She's not going to use a fractional amount of a bag. So based on the number of groups that I created here, she's going to need to use 8 bags in order to solve, or in order to share out her peanuts. I can solve this using the box method that we've talked about for division as well. And the best way that I can go about doing that is setting it up using that box method. When I do that, I cannot have a decimal here in the divisor. I have to kick that decimal out. So in order to kick the decimal out and make it a whole number of 2,500, I need to move it out a total of 2 times. 1, 2. Now, because I kicked the decimal out in the divisor, I have to do the same thing in the dividend as well. Well, in the dividend, too, you don't have a decimal there. So you have to remember that behind every whole number is a decimal point. It may be invisible, but it is there. So I can have the decimal point there, move it once, move it twice. Now, what do I put in place where I have my empty egg crates? I'm going to put zeros there. So this problem is going to end up being 200 divided by 25, which is now something that you guys have seen and solved before. When I take a look at this problem here, I recognize that I cannot put 25 into 2. I also recognize that 25 cannot go into 20 either. I know it's running off the bottom of my screen down there. So I have to figure out how many times 25 can go into 200. And I always have my kids count quarters or think about the value of quarters, because all I'm trying to do here is make $2. So if you think 4 quarters make $1, well, then 8 quarters are going to make $2. So it would be able to go in 8 times. That would give me 200, and I would be left with nothing. There's no remainder on this problem. So there would be 8 bags that she would need. Now, we're also going to be looking at problems that are like this, 518 divided by 7/10. When I look at these, I also have to kick the decimal out of my divisor too. So my divisor is 7/10, and I need to move that decimal out to make it a whole number. When I do that, I move it out one time. That gives me the whole number 7. I also have to do that with my whole number 518, but again, I don't see a decimal on that number. Well, it's invisible. It's always at the end here. So I can move that decimal point out one time as well. And I have an empty egg carton. I have to fill it with an egg. So now my new problem ends up being 5,180 divided by 7. And now I can set this problem up in box method like we've done in the past and solve it. All right, so now that I have my problem set up, I can go ahead and start working through. Can 7 go into 5? No, I put a 0 up there. I subtract, I get 5. I bring the 5 up and over. How many times can 5 go into 1, or how many times can 7 go into 51? Well, I know that 7 times 7 is 49. That's as close as I can get. So I can go there and subtract. When I do that, I'm going to get 2. I have to move my 2 up and over to my 8. How many times can 7 go into 28? Well, it can go in there 4 times. 7 times 4 is 28. When I subtract, I get 0, but I cannot stop there. I have to move that 0 over here. And how many times can 7 go into 0? 0 times. 0 times 7 is 0. I do not have a remainder here. So therefore, the answer to my problem is 740. You do not need to put the decimal point back in there anywhere. Anytime you divide by a whole number first, chances are you're going to get a whole number answer. We talked about that when we talked about dividing whole numbers and unit fractions, and it's the same thing with whole numbers and decimals. As always, if you have any questions, please make sure to ask your teacher.